In this video, we're going to be answering the question, is harvesting worth your time in New World? Is this something that you can make a decent amount of coin per hour, or is it a complete flop? I did a video a little while ago doing this with logging, so if you'd like to see that video, I'll make sure to link that down in the description below. And after that video, I've had a lot of requests to do this for some of the other gathering professions as well. So we are going to target harvesting in this one. So we're going to start off by taking a look at the gear and the attributes that we used for this test, and this is what we were wearing. We were wearing the full harvester set. I did not upgrade these all the way to 625 like I did the logging gear. I just didn't want to use the shards this time around. And last time I looked on the trading post for this gear, you could buy the complete set for really under about 2,500 gold. At least that's on my server. And if you are going out and hard targeting some harvesting activities, you will definitely want to get some of this harvesting luck gear. This is just going to increase the amount of rare materials you get, which is ultimately going to increase the amount of money you make from this activity. So if you are planning on going out and doing nothing but harvesting or going out on some harvesting runs, it's highly recommended that you do put on some of this gear. And then of course, to top it off, you are going to need a harvesting luck amulet as well. This is just again going to increase your chance at getting rare items. And then the other pieces of gear really don't matter too much. I just have on an intelligence ring and an intelligence earring. And then for our weapons, we're just running a rapier and a fire staff so we can quickly get around the map. We wanted an intelligence fire staff so we can bump our intelligence up. We'll get to that here in just a moment. And then the rapier just has dex on it, which really doesn't matter at all. We're just running rapier so we can move around. It also pairs decently with the fire staff, so that's why we were using it. You could opt to get some harvesting luck gear that also has some combat perks on there if you wanted to buy some or craft some. That way, whenever you're out in the wilderness, you can fight the stuff off a little bit easier. Or if you prefer to flag up and harvest, you could maybe opt to have some PvP perks on here. I didn't really go that route. I just bought harvesting gear and went with it, and it worked out just fine. There's not a ton of mobs on the routes that are too dangerous, so you can get by with just using this. Now let's take a look at the attributes that you're going to want whenever you're out harvesting. I went 200 dex, 300 intelligence, no constitution. And the reason I have dexterity on here is of course because I'm running the rapier and I just needed somewhere else to put the points. The most important thing you're going to want to have here is intelligence. You definitely want to have 50 intelligence for the +10 harvesting speed. You move up to 100 intelligence. This one is not super important. It's only 1 Azoth when harvesting. You have a 5% chance, not incredibly important, but you do want to continue to bump this up to get the remainder of the perks. So the 150 intelligence mark gives you negative 10% decreased weight in harvested items, and then you have +10% harvesting speed. And then the most important one you're going to want to get, in my opinion, is this one right here. It happens at the 250 mark of intelligence. It's +10% yield whenever you're harvesting. And then for the 300 intelligence mark, there's nothing there for harvesting, so you don't really have to push that up if you don't want to. You can put that in constitution or wherever you want to put it. It doesn't really matter. You really just want to make sure your intelligence is here at the 250 mark so you can take full advantage of all of the harvesting perks from attributes that you can. And then for the build that I'm running, I was just using some filet and mushroom sauce because this is intelligence dexterity. I'm not running any constitution, so we just used this food whenever we went out and harvested as well. And now let's take a look at the harvesting tool. This is also incredibly important. If you're going to go out and harvest, I highly recommend you invest in a good tool. This applies to any gathering profession in the game. We have horticulture, discipline, harvesting yield, harvesting luck, Azoth extraction, and soul alignment. Getting a legendary tool is not 100% necessary, but it definitely helps increase your bottom line. It definitely helps increase the revenue or the amount of money you're going to bring in from harvesting, because you just have a chance to get extra motes every time you harvest, which is quite nice to get that extra coin whenever you're harvesting anyway. But if you can only afford a purple sickle and you can't get yourself into a legendary, I would highly recommend that you get harvesting yield and harvesting luck. Those are the two most important in my opinion. Having alacrity on here is actually really good as well. Unfortunately, I don't have that on mine, but I'm very happy with the tool that I have, so I just stuck with this one. Now we'll take a look at all the consumables and other buffs you're going to want to have whenever you go out and harvest. We're not going to go too terribly in depth here because I do have a video that goes in depth about all of the buffs you would want. I'll make sure to link that down in the description below, but we'll go over all the things that you can directly control and all the easy things to use whenever you go out on a harvesting run. One of the things you're going to want to get is some breakfast bread. This is just going to increase your luck when harvesting, and again, you definitely want to have a lot of luck so that you have a higher chance at getting some of those rare materials. That's just going to convert into more coin while you're out there doing this activity anyway. And then next we have a powerful proficiency booster. These in my opinion are 100% worth if you are out gathering specifically. If you're just kind of out doing whatever you're doing in the world and you're just casually picking up items as you go, I wouldn't recommend wasting the money on this. But if you are out hard targeting some harvesting or some other gathering skill, then this is worth it in my opinion. I would buy some of these and use these whenever you're out on your harvesting runs. And then we have trophies. Trophies are an important aspect of this as well because this again is just going to increase your luck. I have major harvesting gathering trophies, but getting yourself into some minors at least or some basics is pretty easy and pretty cheap. The major harvesting harvesting trophies last time I checked weren't too terribly expensive. That could have changed now. But if you don't want to get into majors, just make sure you have some basics activated so you can take advantage of the full luck that you're going to get. That way you can make more money while you're out doing this activity. And then of course, last but not least, you want to make sure you are playing a song every time you go out and harvest. This is just going to give you free additional yield. So you just want to select a song. You want to make sure that you select the Fortune's Favor buff. This is going to increase your yields when gathering. You want to make sure you play this song every time you go out on a gathering run. This is just going to give you more materials every time you harvest a single node. That way you make more money for the time spent out there doing this activity. And then as I mentioned before, there's some other things you can do, like get some fort buffs and some town buffs. I'm not going to go too terribly in depth into those, but I will link the video down in the description below if you're interested in fully maximizing the amount of yield you can get from gathering. But for now, those are the most important things that you need to focus on whenever you go out on your runs. So now let's take a look at the results of the run, and then we'll go over how much money exactly we made here in just a moment. But this is what I did whenever I went out on the runs. I did not harvest any other nodes other than harvesting nodes. I did pick up any plants that I seen along the way, but I was primarily focused on getting fiber, silk, and wire fiber, and then I was turning that into infused or doing some other methods to sell those things off. We'll go over that here in just a moment. But this is what I did. We did a total of 7 runs and a total of 5 hours exactly on these runs. And then here are the results. This is what I got on these runs. So we have some air modes here. And again, if I seen these out there, I would just harvest them. But I was hard targeting and mostly farming fiber, silk, and wire fiber. But I did log everything else we received from harvesting because I wanted to include that in the results so that we could see exactly how much money we could expect to make per hour. And as you can see here, the results are going to vary pretty wildly. The very first run we did, I went and I hard targeted fiber. That's what I was after because I knew I needed that first. So we got 6,449 fiber. And then in run 2, we were doing silk. So that's why there's only 103 there, because we weren't really targeting that. And then we didn't really hard target fibers again until run 6. Then in run 6, we were lucky enough to get into an uncontested area and we just were able to farm to our heart's content. So we farmed 11,311 fiber in 45 minutes. It was a pretty good run, a pretty productive one. And we just got really lucky that no one was farming that spot as we were farming it for those 45 minutes. And then as we scroll down here, you can see some of the other things we got. I was harvesting a little bit of hyssop, but again, that's not what I was targeting. We were targeting fiber. So if we go down here, we do have some silk. So the silk threads, here's the silk runs that we did. Much like logging, I found silk to be the hardest thing to get whenever I was doing these runs. Wire fiber was a little bit easier, and in logging, it was the same way. Weirdwood was the hardest thing for me to get, and then the lower tier and the higher tier came a little bit easier. But for silk threads, we did get lucky a couple of times, and we had 3,403 that we got in run 5. And in run 5, it took us 45 minutes to get these 3,403 silk. I'll show you the routes that I ran here in just a little bit towards the end of the video, but we did have some good runs there. And you can see here that I did hard target silk a few times. In the 5th run, we came up and had a pretty nice run. And just bear in mind that your results are going to vary. It just depends on who's farming where. I'll give you some suggestions to farming here in just a moment as well, but that's why these runs are how they are. Sometimes we got lucky, there were people not there, and then sometimes there were people there. It just depended on our luck for that particular run. And then finally, we're going to take a look at wire fiber. We did have a couple of really good runs here. We hard targeted wire fiber twice, and on run 3, we got almost 3,000 wire fiber right at it. And then on our last run, run 7, we had 1849. And then one of the things that I was really interested in was trying to find the equivalent of the softwood tree sap for gathering. Well, that turned out to be dead dryad vines. These sold for about 12 per, which is a little bit less than the softwood tree sap, but nonetheless, you could make a little bit of money off of these, and you can convert these to craft mods. And if you're unfamiliar with what these are, you can take the dead dryad vines to a gypsum kiln. The dead dryad vines are crafting mods that will apply bonus of constitution and intelligence whenever you craft an item. You can take these and turn these into iron guardsman insignias and linen arcane embroideries at a gypsum kiln. And it takes 5 dead dryad vines and 20 azoth in order to convert these. I had a little bit of extra in my storage, but I ultimately got 126 from this run. So if I were to turn those into linen arcane embroideries or iron guardsman insignia, I could essentially get more for them than just selling the dead dryad vines outright. So if you're going to do this, I would highly recommend you check the prices on your server for both of these craft mods and for the dead dryad vines and do the quick math and figure out which one would sell for more. So now with all of that being said, we'll go down here and we'll take a look at how much money we actually made from harvesting. So I have not sold any of this stuff yet. This stuff is just sitting in my inventory, and these are the sell prices at their lowest price on the trading post as of the recording of this video. And as you can see here, we did find a few things that do sell for a decent amount. Thyme, for example, sold for 2. We had 21 of those. And then the dead Dryad vines themselves, just by themselves, were selling for 13 a pop. So if I were to sell those, I'd get 1,638 gold, and I'll go through what they would be if we converted those to craft mods here momentarily. And then you can see here we got a few other items, nothing too noteworthy. Then we have blister weave, which we were getting out of some aptitude crates as well from harvesting and refining the stuff that we found. And then phoenix weave. This is another area where you could capitalize and make a lot more money if you're a little bit more patient. You could turn a lot of your things into phoenix weave instead of just selling the infused silk outright. There's a few things you could do here with patience that will make you a little bit more money. I ultimately ended up having 35 phoenix weave. I was able to do this over a 3-day span, so I just converted some of my stuff into phoenix weave, and those were selling for 112.50 on my marketplace. Then we just have some raw silk left over at 392, so we'd make a total of 1,000 gold if we sold that. Then the other really big things were the sateen that we had left over. Those were selling for $1 a piece at 1564. And then the infused silk, after it's all said and done, after 5 hours of farming, I had 834 infused silk at a total of 8,365 gold. And then here's where it gets really nice to have a legendary tool. The soul mold, we had 775 of those. Those by themselves sell for $2.03 on my marketplace for a total of 1,573 coin. That coin is just passive coin made from harvesting like you would anyway. This is why I highly recommend trying to get a legendary tool if you can. I think it's highly worth the investment if you are going to be doing this long term, or if this is going to be a method for you to try to make gold moving forward in New World. Then of course we have a few other things that we received, and all of these items I was not really hard targeting, as we mentioned before. These are just items that I picked up along the way, but all of these small things do add up. There's not a lot going on here, but they do ultimately add up. So here are the total results. Ultimately, if we sold everything that we harvested over the 5-hour period, we'd make a total of 22,350 coin. This translates into 4,470 coin per hour. However, I do think you could really bring this up over 5K an hour if you were a little bit more patient and you waited and you turned some things into phoenix weave, and even waited for the market to adjust for the dead Dryad vines, so you could maybe sell those for a little bit more. It also is going to highly depend on how populated your server is and how many people are buying what at this particular time. The marketplace does fluctuate greatly, so you could just go save a lot of this stuff up if you didn't need immediate coin and then wait for those prices to go back up. A great time to sell stuff is usually over the weekends or before a really big patch when people are starting to craft some things. Then you could offload a lot of your cooldown mats that you've been saving up and farming for, and probably do a whole lot better than 4,470 gold per hour. But nonetheless, this is very realistic results. I think right now in the current state of New World, this is about what you could expect per hour. You could bump this up to probably over 5K an hour, but that's realistic results. This very much also depends on the population of people farming on your server and a lot of other factors. But I went out and farmed for 5 hours, and this is what I found. Sometimes things were contested, sometimes they weren't, as you've seen in the results up above, and that's what we made. And then here is the quick math for the dead Dryad vines, turning those into other forms of craft mods. And as you can see here, converting those into the linen craft mod would have been the choice. We would have made a little bit more gold, but not a ton, to the tune of about 200 more gold. So you can decide whether or not it's worth it for you to turn those into the other craft mods. So overall, my suggestions for harvesting are a little bit different than they are for logging. I probably would try to hard target silk and wire fiber whenever I'm out harvesting, because the dead Dryad vines just don't sell for quite as much as the softwood tree sap would. So ultimately, where I had the most luck was just kind of finding a few locations of silk and wire fiber that I really liked. I would go hard target just normal fiber. That was pretty easy to find. And then the silk and the wire fiber became a little bit more difficult. Where I found success was going around and just rotating through specific spawns. And then ultimately I would find some that would be there. Sometimes we had more luck than others. Sometimes we were able to farm out a complete spot, and other times we only found a few nodes in that area. But that's what I would do. That would be my suggestion. I'll show you some farming spots here in just a moment, but I would just rotate through some of the spawns, some of the locations, and try to farm this stuff to make infused silk, and then ultimately turn that into phoenix weave. I think that's probably going to be one of the more profitable things to do, and a way to make consistent income, because the cooldown mats do sell all the time. Either that or just sell your infused silk outright. That's probably what I would do. There's obviously also other methods that you could use this for, like for example, you could purchase your fiber or purchase your silk or wire fiber. You just have to do the math to determine which one you would want to do. The experiment that we were running was if you were gathering everything yourself and not purchasing anything off the trading post, but you could experiment with that a little bit and see if there are some opportunities there for you on the market to buy stuff versus going out and harvesting it yourself and spending all that time. Now we're going to go take a look at newworldmap.com. This is a resource map that you can use in order to figure out some good harvesting locations. What I like to do is I like to go over here to to cities and other, and I like to search by regions and spirit shrines so I can kind of get a gauge of where I am. And then if you want to sort by plants, we're going to do hemp first, and here's the spots that I really like to go to farm just hemp. My favorite spot probably is right down here in Windsward, right in this area. This area is often camped though. There are a lot of people that run through here, but I really do like this area and I do find a lot of success here. You can also get a lot of rawhide here at the same time if this is a place you want to go to, because there are some lower level buffalo that spawn there. So if you're trying to get some rawhide too, that's a great place to go to knock out two birds with one stone. I will oftentimes float from this area up a little bit north and then back down south, and I usually have pretty good luck there. The other place is a very popular place too, but it's south of Morningdale. There's a ton of fiber here, and a lot of times what I found is people would be going through here just farming the silk and not really going after the fiber, so that fiber is usually there. You can of course make your way on down into the northern area of Restless Shore as well and pick up all of this fiber. It's not a bad plan either. And then of course there's a lot over here in Ebonscale, and I was coming and running this little route over here too, because there is a nice little wire fiber route here, one of my favorite in the game. I had a lot of luck for it being there every time I went, so I would recommend this zone as well to farm some fiber out too. Those are the spots that I really liked. That's where I went, and that's where I had the most success. And then for silk, the places that I would go would be rotating around through Morningdale. This place is super camped though. It is very hard to get the silk there. I did not have a whole lot of success, but I did have some, so I would rotate through there sometimes nonetheless. And then I would move from there up here to Shattered Mountain. I had a lot of success in Shattered Mountain. There weren't a lot of people harvesting these nodes, so I would just jump from the Mountain Rise outpost and go down here, and then I'd work my way back over here to these nodes kind of on the northern part of the outpost there. Then I'd rotate down to Brightwood and I'd come to this specific spirit shrine, and I would just try to farm here. I would kind of rotate up north and then come back through the graveyard and then back down south. I did find that these were here a lot of times because a lot of people don't want to run all the way down there. They'll just farm up in this area. So I did find some luck here. And then another place I would go was right down here to Weaver's Fin, and I would try to farm out these here. I did have a lot of luck here as well. These were camped some, but there were a few times where I caught this with the spawn fully intact and I was able to farm every single node there. So I would rotate through those few locations, and that's kind of where I stayed. I didn't bother running around trying to chase the silk everywhere. I would just kind of rotate through those locations, and then eventually they would spawn back. And then I would catch the spawns and I was able to get a lot of silk that way. And then finally we have the wire fiber. One of the best places to farm wire fiber is up here in Eden Grove. This place is often camped though because it is highly dense with wire fiber, so it is pretty competitive. But I did still have quite a lot of luck farming the wire fiber there. I treated this much the same way as I did silk though. I found a few locations that I really enjoyed going to, and then I'd rotate through them. So I would go to Eden Grove here, and then I would also move up here to Shattered Mountain for the silk as well. I'd go to Mountain Home and then work my way all the way back up north, and then if it wasn't here, then I would move on and go to a different area. A lot of people on stream said they like to go to Brimstone Sands to farm their wire fiber. I didn't particularly enjoy that area, so I would make my way down here to Ebonscale Reach. I would come to the Southern Shrine and I would go right in this area right here. This is where I probably had the most luck farming wire fiber. I found that not a lot of people came here. I did have it contested a few times, but not too many. So I would come over here. There's also some normal fiber here as we seen earlier, and I would just try to hit those nodes. And then finally, the last place I would go would be up here to Northern Ebonscale. You can just go to Wakala here and then go down south, and then you can try to hit these. But that's how I farmed the wire fiber, much like I farmed the silk. I would just rotate through the areas that I really like to go to, and then eventually I would find some that were spawned, and I would just hit those up and then just continue the path. So within those 45-minute time frames, I would have very specific locations I went to. I knew exactly where I was going, exactly what I was looking for, and that really helped optimize the amount of resources I was getting per hour or per harvesting session. That's going to do it for this one, boys and girls. Those are the realistic results from harvesting. That's what you can expect if you go harvest in New World. If you guys want to see the logging video again, I'll make sure to link that down in the description below. And if you're interested in seeing the other gathering professions, please let me know and I'll do those as well. We still have skinning, we still have mining we could do, and then potentially fishing if you guys wanted to see that one too. But that's it. That's the realistic results from harvesting. I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much. And if you enjoy New World or enjoy New World content, we post a ton of it here on the channel. So please make sure to like and subscribe. I'd appreciate that as well. And of course, we stream every Monday through Friday over twitch.tv/BDLG. Love to see you come hang out over there. That'll do for this one. We'll see you in the next one.